March 25th, 2024 is the day that Sean Diddy Combs' image went from being that of a world-famous, wealthy music mogul, producer, and long-running entrepreneur with the Midas touch to an instantly hated, alleged trafficker. This is the day that the Department of Homeland Security raided Combs' private properties in Los Angeles, New York, and Miami on the strength of a Southern District of New York search warrant in connection with an unspecified ongoing investigation. The Diddy raids was the top news story for, a year to come. Federal agents snatched up Diddy's computers, electronic devices, 3 illegally modified AR-15 rifles, narcotics such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, and then they also confiscated the much-talked-about amount of over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. On that very same day of March 25th, according to the Miami Herald, federal agents questioned Diddy at Opa-locka Airport in Miami-Dade County, where agents seized several electronic devices before permitting him to depart for his scheduled vacation to Antigua and Barbuda. Then, less than 6 months later on September 16, 2024, Diddy was arrested by U.S. Homeland Security investigators in Manhattan after he was indicted by a grand jury. Diddy was charged with trafficking and racketeering, to which he pleaded not guilty in his first court appearance at a Manhattan federal courthouse the following day on September 17, 2024. On that day in court, U.S. Magistrate Judge Robin Tarnofsky denied Diddy bail and ordered him to stay in federal custody. Then the next day on September 18th, a second judge named Andrew L. Carter Jr. also denied Diddy bail based on concerns about the potential for witnesses to be threatened and intimidated. This decision was made even after Diddy's attorneys offered a $50 million bond package and made the suggestion that Diddy could be surrounded by security for the rest of his life to monitor all of his phone calls and visits, until trial, of course. Diddy was sent to MDC Brooklyn, the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center where many other famous incarcerated inmates have gone, like R. Kelly, Ja Rule, Al Sharpton, Ghislaine Maxwell, Luigi Mangione, 6ix9ine, Fetty Wap, and Casanova. As shocking as this investigation was to people, unfortunately, those closer to Diddy have heard the rumblings about him being accused of misconduct for incidents dating all the way back to 1990 and all the way up to 2023. Diddy has been faced with at least 10 civil lawsuits connected to abuse and misconduct, and he has also faced accusations of rape, drug-facilitated SA, child SA, and sexual harassment, which he has not been charged with, but he has pleaded not guilty to all his federal criminal charges from 2024. Just between November and December 2023 alone, Diddy was accused of misconduct by 4 women, one of which happened to be his former girlfriend Cassie Ventura, who alleged that she had been raped, trafficked into encounters with others, and physically assaulted by Diddy on numerous occasions over the course of 10 years. One incident involving Diddy's abuse of Cassie Ventura played out for all eyes to see in May of 2024 when news outlets began circulating a video from 2016 of Cassie's then-boyfriend Diddy physically assaulting her inside a hotel. The explosive media coverage that this video caused opened the floodgates for numerous civil complaints to get filed by claimants who alleged that they had been abused by Diddy in all different manners between 1990 and 2009. In fact, on October 1st, 2024, the Washington Post reported that lawyers would be filing as many as 120 additional lawsuits which cover alleged Diddy assaults on males and females, many that were minors during those times. Approximately half of the alleged victims said that they reported their assaults to the police, to a doctor, or even to the FBI. There were also some that claimed to have been drugged or offered hush money to keep quiet about what happened. On October 10th, 2024, New York federal judge scheduled Sean Diddy Combs' trial to begin on May 5th, 2025. And it looked like Diddy was in big trouble, and with his highly publicized trial date right around the corner, who's on his side in court as he faces the federal government? In order to fight the dead serious trafficking and racketeering charges filed against him, Diddy sought out the guidance of a very well-known legal team of lawyers. One longtime defense attorney that Diddy reached out to was Anthony Ricco, who may have an Italian name, but the New York Magazine describes him as one of the city's most gifted defense attorneys. He also happens to be black and Muslim, and he favors fedoras and eyeglasses straight from the Malcolm X catalog. Anthony Ricco graduated from Adelphi University, earning his BA in political science in May of 1978, and then from Northeastern University School of Law in May of 1981. After passing the bar exam, he has also been a lawyer who believes that everyone deserves a fair trial, leading him to work on a number of high-profile cases, representing his fair share of high-profile law-breaking lawyers, police shooters, convicted terrorists, drug dealers, and dishonest politicians. Anthony Ricco also happens to be an adjunct professor at Fordham University and teaches at a special intensive training program for death penalty lawyers at Santa Clara University. But his legal career wasn't just handed to him. He came from the mud. Anthony Ricco was born and raised in Harlem, New York, similar to Diddy, which Ricco described as a hellish place, known as 116th Street and 8th Avenue. Anthony has worked with 45 death penalty cases across the United States, with one of the most notable being Osama bin Laden, along with other controversial cases defending Detective Giscardi Snora, Corey Arthur, and Jelani Solomon. Anthony Ricco served as counsel on the World Trade Center bombing conspiracy case for Osama bin Laden, the al-Qaeda leader targeted for being responsible for the 9/11 attacks in New York City on September 11, 2001, that led to the death of nearly 3,000 Americans. Previously, Anthony Ricco said of the organization, "Having knowledge someone is in al-Qaeda is not a criminal act. Many members of al-Qaeda are not involved in criminal activity." Ricco stated that Osama bin Laden shouldn't be prosecuted because his client was unable to defend himself properly as he was not in the United States at the time. After an extensive manhunt, Osama bin Laden's case didn't end in a courtroom. It ended with him getting killed by U.S. Special Forces during a raid in Pakistan in 2011. Ricco also defended associates of bin Laden, including Mohammed Odeh, who was convicted of plotting bomb attacks on U.S. embassies in the countries of Kenya and Tanzania. Mr. Ricco's defense assisted Mohammed Odeh in avoiding the death penalty and made it possible for him to receive a life sentence instead. Defense attorney Anthony Ricco is also counsel for Detective Giscardi Snora in the controversial Sean Bell case, in which a 23-year-old African-American male, Sean Bell, was shot and killed in the New York City borough of Queens by both plainclothes and undercover NYPD officers, who fired a total of 50 rounds on November 25, 2006. Sean Bell's friends, Trent Benfield and Joseph Guzman, suffered severe wounds, and the incident set off public outrage over police brutality in the black community. Anthony Ricco has spoken publicly about how he defended the detective even when it wasn't a popular decision. "One judge who's a friend warned me against taking the case. So did a lot of friends and family. You see, the African American community's concern about police violence is real, and it's been historic here. I was told, don't help these guys, and if they're black cops, so what? I believe that all people are deserving of a fair trial. I have defended alleged cop killers. Now I was defending an alleged killer cop. Why is anybody ever opposed to a fair trial?" 3 of the 5 detectives involved in the shooting went to trial on charges of first and second degree manslaughter, first and second degree assault, and second degree reckless endangerment. But in April of 2008, the 3 detectives that were involved in the shooting, including Anthony Ricco's client, Detective Giscardi Snora, were found not guilty on all charges. The verdict led to even more heated debates and protests about racial profiling, the use of deadly force by law enforcement, and police accountability. Before 2004, the year when the New York State death penalty was declared unconstitutional, Anthony Ricco served as capital counsel on many death-eligible cases. One of those well-known cases was the People versus Corey Arthur, where he defended Corey Arthur, who was charged with the 1997 murder in the first degree of his ex-teacher, 31-year-old Jonathan Levin, a beloved English instructor at William H. Taft High School in the South Bronx. Even when Jonathan Levin mentoring underprivileged kids and living a humble life in his Upper West Side Manhattan apartment, he also happened to be the son of a wealthy father, then Time Warner CEO Gerald Levin. This wasn't the fact that Jonathan Levin was said to have bragged about to people, but his quiet secret was thought to have been a possible motive for the robbery and murder. At the crime scene, Jonathan Levin's decomposed body was found shot and stabbed on the floor, appearing to have been duct taped while his apartment was ransacked during an apparent robbery. There was also $800 taken from a local ATM machine using Jonathan Levin's ATM card. Corey Arthur always declared that he was innocent, but he was sentenced to 25 years to life for murder in the first degree, and Anthony Ricco prevented him from receiving the death penalty. Lawyer Anthony Ricco also defended Jelani Solomon, 29, of Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, who ultimately was sentenced to 2 life sentences without parole in federal prison, followed by an additional 10 years for illegal firearm possession, for the January 19, 2004 contract killing of 53-year-old Frank Helisek and conspiracy to distribute 5 kilos of cocaine. U.S. District Judge Terrence F. McVeary said that Jelani Solomon was the head of a fallen empire orchestrated with the help of his mother overseeing other drug dealers working for the organization. Jelani Solomon used some of the money he made from the narcotics sales to buy houses in Beaver County. U.S. District Judge Terrence F. McVeary was bound to sentence Jelani Solomon to life for the drug trafficking resulting in death, But U.S. Assistant Attorney Tina O. Miller is the one that pushed for the second life sentence. Jelani Solomon was charged in a 9-count indictment with 2 co-defendants, Wanda Solomon, his mother, and Clarence Hanner, his sister's boyfriend, with a variety of narcotics and firearms offenses. Wanda Solomon and Clarence Hanner pleaded guilty and were sentenced to 300 months imprisonment and 240 months imprisonment, respectively. Jelani Solomon made the decision to take his case to trial and was found guilty on all counts. The jury had mercy on him and declined to impose the death penalty. Prosecutors stated that Jelani Solomon paid Clarence Hanner $5,000 and 11 ounces of cocaine in order to shoot Frank Helisick, father of Sean Helisick, on the eve of Jelani Solomon's drug trial in Beaver County Court because Frank's son Sean Helisick was planning to testify against Solomon. According to the prosecution, the shooting was to silence Sean Helisick's testimony. But with all the experience that defense attorney Anthony Ricco brought to the table, and after representing plenty of other clients that were accused of heinous crimes, Ricco still felt the need to pull out of Diddy's human trafficking and racketeering case. On February 21, 2025, Anthony Ricco decided to step aside as one of Diddy's defense attorneys, withdrawing from the case by filing a motion in New York federal court to step down, citing an inability to continue effectively representing the defamed celebrity. No specific reasons were given by Anthony as to why he no longer wanted to be working Diddy's case, beyond referencing decisions with Diddy's lead counsel, Marc Agnifilo. This type of withdrawal requires judicial approval in order to become official, but led many people to wonder, if Anthony Ricco is willing to defend Osama bin Laden, accused of participating in the killings of thousands of people, what was it about Diddy that made him disassociate himself from it? Benjamin Brafman is the founder of the Manhattan-based law firm Brafman & Associates and is a highly sought-after criminal defense attorney, known for representing many high-profile political figures, celebrities, and accused mafia members. The son of Holocaust survivors, Brafman majored in anthropology and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree from Brooklyn College. He then received his Juris Doctor with distinction from Ohio Northern University College of Law and also earned a postdoc degree from New York University School of Law. Even before Diddy was imprisoned for the very first time in 2024, he had a lengthy history of legal battles, and his attorney Benjamin Brafman has been assisting him for over 20 years. The first instance of Benjamin Brafman was back in 1999 when Diddy was facing illegal weapons and bribery charges from the Manhattan nightclub shooting incident at Club New York. Brafman was brought onto Diddy's legal team at the request of famed attorney Johnny Cochran. That night, Diddy's entourage included his then-girlfriend, actress and singer Jennifer Lopez, and Diddy's Bad Boy Records rapper, Shine. When Diddy and his crew were leaving Club New York, Diddy bumped into a man named Matthew Scar Allen, causing Scar to push back, leading to a fight and shots to be fired, with 3 clubbers getting injured. Diddy and J-Lo fled the scene in his car but were pulled over after running a light. When they got stopped by the police, a gun was found in the car, causing the couple to get arrested. When it was all said and done, Jennifer Lopez was absolved of all wrongdoing after reportedly being detained for 14 hours. But Diddy wasn't so lucky and got indicted on 2 counts of criminal possession of an unregistered gun and attempted bribery for allegedly trying to get his bodyguard, Anthony Jones, to take the blame and claim the weapon was his. But with the help of Benjamin Brafman, this was just a temporary roadblock for Diddy, who was later acquitted and would give Brafman the nickname Uncle Benny. Apparently, 100 prosecution witnesses and others testified to Diddy being to blame, but still a not guilty verdict was given to him, which increased the profile of Benjamin Brafman. But the same couldn't be said for Diddy's Bad Boy Records rapper Shine, who not only got arrested with Diddy and J-Lo, but was convicted of 2 counts of assault as well as reckless endangerment and gun possession. Shine was sentenced to 10 years in prison, served 9 before being deported to Belize, and would continue living there where his family is originally from, becoming a politician as well. Then for the next 2 decades, Diddy would keep Benjamin Brafman on call for any of his legal cases, whether criminal or civil. For instance, Brafman defended Diddy in a civil suit in 2007 where a man named Gerard Rachnitzer was seeking to be paid for damages after claiming that he and his girlfriend had an altercation with Diddy at Teddy's, a club inside the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City on February 25, 2007. Allegedly, Diddy was talking to the man's girlfriend, causing the man to approach Diddy and yell at the executive in a threatening manner. The claim goes on to say that the man was intentionally, willfully, knowingly, and unlawfully attacked, assaulted, and battered by Diddy, causing him to supposedly fly backwards several feet like a cartoon character and hit a parked car. It also makes mention of Diddy allegedly pushing the man's girlfriend and making the attempt to spit on another female that was hanging out with the man and his girlfriend. Brafman's response to the incident was summed up by saying, It's just another example of an opportunist seeking to fabricate a lawsuit based on a flat-out lie to try to take advantage of Mr. Combs' celebrity status. Mr. Combs did not hit anyone, and Mr. Rechnitzer suffered no injuries or damages whatsoever. There is no case. It is that simple. Brafman also helped Diddy get out of a legal jam in May of 2007 when Lori Ann Gibson, the choreographer who has worked for Michael Jackson, Alicia Keys, Lady Gaga, and Beyonce, accused Diddy of lifting up a chair and threatening to smash her with it while they were filming an episode of his reality TV series Making the Band. Lori Ann Gibson filed the complaint with the New York Police Department on May 11, 2007, saying that the argument started over what was said to be a weak performance by the contestants during a filming at the New York Sports Club. Lori Ann Gibson went on to allege that Diddy and producer-singer Michael Bivins, who happened to be one of the show's celebrity judges, grabbed her while Diddy picked up the chair and threatened her verbally. She stated that she was able to pull away and escape from the set, but Benjamin Brafman denied all allegations that she made, and the NYPD would close the case after finding no valid reason to proceed. Then, in November of 2023, when Diddy first got hit with the $30 million civil lawsuit from Cassie Ventura, claiming abuse among other things, Benjamin Brafman was right by Diddy's side. In an exclusive interview with People magazine, Brafman would say the following about Cassie's accusations. Mr. Combs vehemently denies these offensive and outrageous allegations. Ms. Ventura's demand of $30 million under the threat of writing a damaging book about the relationship was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail. Despite withdrawing her initial threat, Ms. Ventura has now resorted to filing a lawsuit riddled with baseless and outrageous lies, aiming to tarnish Mr. Combs' reputation and seeking a payday. In addition to working with Diddy, Benjamin Brafman has also provided his legal expertise to many other widely known clients such as Michael Jackson, Harvey Weinstein, Martin Shkreli, and Dominique Strauss-Kahn. The People of the State of California versus Michael Jackson was a 2005 criminal trial held in Santa Barbara County Superior Court in Santa Maria, California that the world-famous pop singer Michael Jackson initially hired Benjamin Brafman to assist with. Michael Jackson was charged with molesting Gavin Arvizo, who was 13 years old at the time of the supposed abuse, which was said to have taken place at Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch estate in Los Olivos, California. Michael Jackson was first accused of child SA in 1993. He denied the allegations and settled the situation in a civil lawsuit. In 2003, the documentary Living with Michael Jackson showed Jackson holding hands with Gavin and speaking about his typical practice of sharing his bed with children, which stirred up an investigation. Then life got hard for MJ, who was then indicted on 4 counts of molesting a minor, 4 counts of intoxicating a minor to him, 1 count of conspiring to hold Gavin and his family captive, and conspiring to commit extortion and child abduction. The trial took place across approximately 4 months, starting with jury selection that began on January 31st, 2005. Gavin and his brother testified that Michael Jackson had given them alcohol, showed them corn, touched himself in front of them, and made advances towards them. Michael Jackson's defense characterized the witnesses for the prosecution as being nothing but disgruntled ex-employees or people merely seeking to exploit Jackson for a big payday. Witnesses in support of Michael Jackson included testimony from celebrities like former child actor Macaulay Culkin from the Christmas movie Home Alone and the comedian Chris Tucker, who co-starred with Ice Cube in the comedy movie Friday. The trial turned into a media circus, with news outlets portraying Michael Jackson as someone who they already believed was guilty before being proven innocent. Then, surprisingly enough, Benjamin Brafman told Good Morning America that he wouldn't give any specifics about why he was fired from the case by MJ just days before the singer's scheduled arraignment in a Santa Barbara court on grand jury charges. But Brafman said the parting of ways didn't happen suddenly and had been expected for some time. In spite of the situation, Brafman still wished Jackson well when he said, "I don't wish him any harm. To the contrary, I hope he wins this case. I think he has every chance to win this case. I think the legal team has to understand that it is not business as usual. They have to be focused." Benjamin Brafman and another current Diddy lawyer, Marc Geragos, were both reportedly dismissed by the Michael Jackson camp in that case. They found out that their replacement, Thomas Mesereau, would be taking their place through media reports, not directly from Michael Jackson's team, who reportedly wanted Brafman and Geragos to respond to every new development in the case that appeared on cable TV. But the 2 attorneys refused because they believed they would just prolong the story in the news. Michael Jackson ended up getting acquitted on all counts on June 13, 2005, choosing not to return to his Neverland Ranch, the scene of the supposed crimes, and spent the first several months after the trial living outside of the U.S. in Bahrain and Ireland. Things would take a strange turn in 2013, about 4 years after Michael Jackson was deceased, when one of the defense witnesses named Wade Robson changed his original position and filed a lawsuit, saying he had in fact been abused by Michael Jackson. Another infamous client that Benjamin Brafman took on that had SA issues to deal with in court was former film producer Harvey Weinstein. In October of 2017, the New York Times and the New Yorker both reported that dozens of women were coming out and accusing Harvey Weinstein of rape, SA, and abuse over a period of at least 30 years. In fact, over 80 women in the film industry eventually accused Weinstein of such acts, including, but not limited to, Rosanna Arquette, Kate Beckinsale, Kate Blanchett, Helena Bonham Carter, Daryl Hannah, Salma Hayek, Paris Hilton, Angelina Jolie, Madonna, Lupita Nyong'o, Gwyneth Paltrow, Sarah Polley, Uma Thurman, Sean Young, Mira Sorvino, and many others. Harvey Weinstein denied any non-consensual sex, but was soon dismissed from his own production company, The Weinstein Company, was expelled from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and stopped socializing in the public from that point forward. Weinstein hired Brafman in 2017 and represented Weinstein at his arraignment on May 25, 2018 in Manhattan Criminal Court on charges of first-degree rape and third-degree rape in one case and first-degree criminal act in another. Brafman would go on to say, Mr. Weinstein did not invent the casting couch in Hollywood. Bad behavior is not on trial in this case. Then, during January 2019, Benjamin Brafman and Harvey Weinstein issued a joint statement where they officially parted ways, and Weinstein subsequently got convicted on several charges and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Benjamin Brafman was also known for representing Martin Shkreli, co-founder of the hedge funds Alea Capital, MSMB Capital Management, and MSMB Healthcare, the co-founder and former CEO of pharmaceutical firms Retrofin and Turing Pharmaceuticals, and the former CEO of startup software company Godel Systems. Martin Shkreli also famously bought the only copy created of Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, the seventh studio album by Wu-Tang Clan, from the group in 2015 for $2 million. Once Upon a Time in Shaolin was secretly recorded over the course of 6 years from 2007 to 2013, with one single 2-CD copy pressed in 2014 and stored in a secured vault at the Royal Mansour Hotel in Casablanca, Morocco, then sold to Martin Shkreli through the auction house Paddle 8 in 2015. A legal agreement stipulated that the album can be played at listening parties but cannot be commercially exploited until 2103. The Wu-Tang Clan may have been one of Shkreli's prized possessions, but it definitely wasn't the reason why he had to hire Brafman. On December 17, 2015, Martin Shkreli was arrested for securities fraud by the FBI after a federal indictment in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York was filed. The charges were issued after an investigation into Martin Shkreli's time at MSMB Capital Management and Retrofin, to which U.S. Attorney Robert Capers said, Shkreli essentially ran his company like a Ponzi scheme where he used each subsequent company to pay off defrauded investors from the prior company. Federal prosecutors stated that Martin Shkreli and co-defendant Evan Griebel had allegedly participated in schemes to trick investors through deceitful manipulation, while Shkreli felt that he was hated for his flamboyant personality and was being targeted by law enforcement for his price hikes that he had placed on the drug Daraprim that treats parasitic infections, to which he increased the cost from $13.50 per pill to $750 per pill. Shkreli retained the services of criminal defense attorney Brafman to defend him in 2016, and because of Shkreli's negative public image, it proved hard to put together an unbiased jury. During his 2017 trial, Martin Shkreli claimed that none of his investors actually lost money, with some making a profit, and because of this his actions shouldn't be considered a crime. Shkreli also made it difficult to garner any sympathy in the courtroom due to his frequent criticisms of the federal prosecutors in New York's Eastern District, whom he called junior varsity in comparison to those in the Southern District, also mocking them on Facebook. This behavior caused those prosecutors to request that Judge Kyoe Matsumoto issued a gag order to stop what they referred to as Martin Shkreli's campaign of disruption. Benjamin Brafman spoke up for his outspoken client by saying that Shkreli was being baited by the media and was coping with extreme anxiety. The judge ordered Shkreli not to speak with reporters in the courthouse or in its immediate vicinity. The trial jury found Martin Shkreli guilty on August 4, 2017 of 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and not guilty on 5 other counts, which included wire fraud. Then on March 5, 2018, Martin Shkreli was ordered to forfeit close to $7.4 million by the court, and if he had insufficient cash to fulfill the forfeiture order, his assets, including a piece of art by Pablo Picasso, would be sold to cover the remaining balance. On March 9, 2018, Shkreli was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison, and in April of 2018, Shkreli was forced to pay $388,000 in restitution. Before Benjamin Brafman was hired by Diddy, he has also been in service to other high-profile clients that have been accused of SA behavior. In 2011, Brafman represented Dominique Strauss-Kahn, a leading candidate in the 2012 French presidential election, economist, and the former head of the International Monetary Fund, in an SA case involving claims made by a member of the housekeeping staff of an upscale New York City hotel. This brought about the criminal case known as the People of the State of New York versus Strauss-Kahn, involving allegations of SA and attempted rape made by hotel maid Nafissatou Diallo against Dominique Strauss-Kahn at the Sofitel New York Hotel on May 14, 2011. 5 days later, on May 19, 2011, Dominique Strauss-Kahn was indicted by a grand jury. He posted $1 million bail, pleaded not guilty, and was placed under house arrest. 4 days after Dominique Strauss-Kahn was arrested, he voluntarily resigned from his post at the IMF. The prosecutors that Brafman and his client were up against later told the judge on July 1, 2011, that they had changed their mind about the strength of their case in light of the housekeeper's decreased credibility. On August 23, 2011, the judge officially dismissed all charges against Dominique Strauss-Kahn following a recommendation for dismissal filed by the district attorney's office, which asserted that the complainant, Nafissatou Diallo's untruthfulness, made it impossible to credit her. Benjamin Brafman and Dominique Strauss-Kahn's other lawyer, William W. Taylor III of Zuckerman Spader LLP, gained a recommendation that charges to be dropped from New York City County District Attorney Cyrus Vance, and then charges dropped by New York State Supreme Court Justice Michael Obis. Diddy's legal team not only contains Benjamin Brafman, but also a lawyer that used to work for Brafman, Marc Agnifilo. Brafman would actually step away from this case in particular. After spending the better part of 18 years with Benjamin Brafman's firm, Brafman and Associates, between August 2006 to July of 2024, Marc Agnifilo left and took two of Brafman's attorneys with him, Zach and Trader and Teny Geragos, to start his own law firm, Agnifilo and Trader LLP, that he established on March 1, 2024. Among the other lawyers working at Agnifilo and Trader LLP is Marc Agnifilo's wife, the lawyer for alleged United Healthcare CEO shooter Luigi Mangione. After Agnifilo received his bachelor's degree in philosophy and political science from Connecticut College in 1986, he continued on to earn his Juris Doctor Professional Doctorate degree in law from Brooklyn's Law School in 1990, which happens to be where he won the American Jurisprudence Award for outstanding performance in trial advocacy. Agnifilo became a member of multiple bar associations, such as the New York State Bar, the State of New Jersey Bar, the Supreme Court of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and the United States District Courts for the Southern and Eastern Districts of New York and the District of New Jersey. Agnifilo was formerly the supervisor at the United States Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey and also serves as the former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney, transitioning into being the lead trial counsel on complex criminal cases, investigations, and financial regulatory matters in the U.S. District Courts all over the United States, in state courts in New York and New Jersey, and has an active international criminal practice that has represented clients on matters charged by the governments of Italy, Switzerland, Romania, Bulgaria, and Kyrgyzstan. Over the course of 30 years, Marc Agnifilo has tried over 200 cases, but typically handling the highest stakes criminal cases that deal with securities fraud, wire fraud, insurance fraud, bankruptcy fraud, money laundering, racketeering and enterprise corruption, foreign corrupt practices, international arms dealing, criminal antitrust, bribery, kickbacks, and criminal tax investigations. Marc Agnifilo, who worked with the U.S. Deputy Attorney General to form national gang strategies, has also investigated and prosecuted members of Italian, Russian, and Asian organized crime and violent criminal enterprises, including gangs with a national reach such as the Bloods, the Crips, and the Latin Kings, international gangs such as the MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia. Among Marc Agnifilo's history of major criminal court cases that he has worked on over the years, he served as an attorney for Keith Raniere, the founder of the cult called NXIVM, and Goldman Sachs employee Roger Ng. Agnifilo worked on the highly controversial case for client Keith Raniere, the founder of NXIVM, that started out as a multi-level marketing company and self-improvement, and spiraled into what was described as a cult-like group accused of treating female members as S-slaves. Similar to the amount of docuseries and documentary projects that have emerged about the criminal accusations against Diddy, there are several that have been produced about Keith Raniere and his NXIVM group over the years, such as A&E Investigates, Cults, and Extreme Belief, aired its premiere one-hour episode NXIVM on May 28th of 2018. Investigation Discovery 2, The Lost Women of NXIVM in 2019, the HBO docuseries The Vow, the Starz docuseries Seduced Inside the NXIVM Cult in 2020, an American Greed episode in 2021, and a Dateline interview with Keith Raniere in 2021. Coming from a multi-level marketing background, also colloquially known as pyramid scheme, working with a domestic product company Amway, Keith Raniere later reapplied what he learned when he co-founded his own organization called NXIVM between 1998 to 2018, with its headquarters near Albany, New York. But instead of offering domestic cleaning products like Amway, NXIVM offered so-called self-help classes and personal development seminars that cost members thousands of dollars to attend. NXIVM roped in about 700 members at its peak, including celebrities like actress Allison Mack from the TV show Smallville and high-net-worth individuals like Claire Brafman from the billionaire family that started the Seagram's Gin Company. In the insulated community of NXIVM, Keith Raniere was viewed as the group's guru and was referred to as Vanguard. Prosecutors that lawyer Marc Agnifilo was up against revealed that his client Keith Raniere created a secret sorority within NXIVM known as DOS, D-O-S, that contained female slaves who were forced to turn over nude photos of themselves and other compromising materials that could later be used to blackmail them if they tried to leave NXIVM. Women were made to remain on starvation diets, branded with Keith Raniere's initials onto their skin, in order to engage with him. Federal prosecutors pushed for Keith Raniere to receive a life sentence for the numerous crimes he committed as the leader of NXIVM. Marc Agnifilo asked for his client, Keith Raniere, to receive just 20 years, with the excuse being that his client did not mean to hurt anyone. But when Agnifilo said that the sentence Keith Raniere received should take into account his perspective, U.S. District Judge Nicholas Garofis wasn't having it and responded by saying, "We're not sentencing him based on a perspective. We're sentencing him based on his behavior." Jurors convicted Keith Raniere in June 2019, and the crimes included possession of child P in the form of photos of a 15-year-old girl. Raniere was also charged with trafficking and racketeering, the same charges that Marc Agnifilo's client Diddy is facing, as well as smuggling illegal aliens, extortion, and obstruction of justice, all of which led to Raniere getting sentenced to 120 years in prison and getting hit with a fine of $1.75 million, the maximum allowed by the law. The sentence was brought forth by the U.S. District Judge Nicholas Garofis in Brooklyn, New York, after the conclusion of a hearing where 15 former NXIVM members spoke out against Raniere's actions. In 2021, Marc Agnifilo submitted court documents to withdraw from the convicted trafficker's case, stating that he conferred with Raniere beforehand and let him know that he intended to step away and that they were in agreement. Marc Agnifilo also informed the new additions to Raniere's team, Joseph McBride, and Stephen Metcalf II, who consented to the withdrawal. Lawyer Teny Geragos, who was on the team with Marc Agnifilo, submitted a similar letter to the court as well to withdraw from the case. Diddy's lawyer Marc Agnifilo also provided legal representation for another client who didn't win their criminal case. His name is Roger Ng, a Malaysian national who was a former managing director at Goldman Sachs until he was convicted in 2022 of bribery and corruption charges in a scheme involving the Malaysian Sovereign Wealth Fund. A United States judge ordered former Goldman Sachs banker Roger Ng to forfeit $35.1 million after handing down a sentence of 10 years in prison for helping snatch billions of dollars out of Malaysia's 1MDB Sovereign Wealth Fund. Roger said in a court filing that he spent 6 months in a horrifying Malaysian prison where he was sometimes chained to as many as 20 other inmates, which he described in a letter to the U.S. District Judge Margot Brody. In pleading for leniency, he also described the repercussions of having been held in solitary confinement for up to 2 weeks at a time by stating, 6 months in the Malaysian prison had a devastating effect mentally and physically. Until today, I find myself reclusive socially as I continue to deal with this brutal and distressing experience. The time without sunlight and in isolation made me lose my mind and become frightful. Roger Ng's letter argued that the time he spent in Malaysia's Sungai Buloh prison prior to his May 2019 extradition to the United States was punishment enough for his crime. He shared how he lived there with rats and vermin, slept on a floor made of cement, and contracted malaria and leptospirosis, which is a bacterial infection that is contracted by being in contact with rat urine. Roger Ng was asking Judge Brody to give him no additional jail time in the U.S., as his March 2023 sentencing date in federal court in Brooklyn, New York was approaching. But U.S. District Judge Margot Brody in Brooklyn shut down his argument that he shouldn't serve more time or owe any more money after already forfeiting tens of millions of dollars of alleged proceeds from his crimes to Malaysia. Marc Agnifilo stated that his client had been drained of the majority of his assets already. But U.S. District Judge Margot Brody said the $35 million forfeiture was not constitutionally excessive, and that even if Roger was less responsible for the crime than others involved may have been, he still played his position in what she labeled as being one of the largest financial crimes of all time that reduced society's confidence in government and democracy. U.S. District Judge Margot Brody imposed Roger Ng's 10-year prison sentence in March of 2023, 11 months after jurors found him guilty of assisting his former Goldman Sachs boss Tim Leissner with embezzling billions of dollars from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, laundered the proceeds, and bribed government officials in order to win a business. The suspected mastermind behind the scheme was Joe Low, a Malaysian financier who was also indicted but disappeared at the time. Goldman Sachs settled up with authorities in October of 2020, agreeing to pay over $2 billion, making it the largest penalty in U.S. history for a violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act at the time. And Goldman Sachs also had its Malaysian unit plead guilty to a corruption charge. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak was even hit with a 12-year prison sentence after being convicted in a Malaysian court of receiving $10 million from a former 1MDB unit, but has consistently denied any wrongdoing. Interestingly enough, Tim Leissner, Roger Ng's former Goldman boss, also happens to be the estranged husband of Kimora Lee Simmons, whose ex-husband is Russell Simmons, who used to run Def Jam Records and faces his own accusations like Diddy, although not criminal. Tim Leissner was arrested in June 2018 in Washington, D.C., and that same year he pled guilty to charges that he personally stole $200 million from the fund, that he broke the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act by paying bribes to corrupt Malaysian and Emirati officers to drum up business for Goldman Sachs. Not only was Leissner banned for life by the SEC and forced to pay a $43 million fine, as of 2020 he's been facing up to 25 years in prison. But apparently, thanks to his cooperation with the authorities as the government's star witness at trial, including testifying against his former Goldman Sachs deputy, Roger Ng, Tim Leissner has managed to avoid spending any time in jail. Roger Ng's lawyer, Marc Agnifilo, argued that Ng was used as a scapegoat for the crimes committed by those above his pay grade by stating, Roger is basically the fall guy for this whole thing. Working right along with Marc Agnifilo as civil attorneys on Diddy's trafficking and racketeering case is Teny Geragos. Marc Agnifilo and Teny Geragos are both founding partners of the New York-based law firm Agnifilo and Trader LLP. And according to her lawyer profile on the website for the law group, Teny is particularly experienced in defending and investigating allegations of misconduct, which involve complex legal issues and emotionally charged situations. Teny has represented numerous individuals accused of SA, harassment, or other types of misconduct. Teny has also regularly represented victims of SA and violence, helping them navigate the difficulties of reporting to the police and cooperating with law enforcement investigations. Before Teny Geragos began her path towards becoming a criminal lawyer, Geragos studied art history, media, culture, and communications between 2009 to 2013, so she's one of the youngest in this entire group of lawyers, graduating from New York University. She then moved on to earn her law doctorate at the Loyola Law School in Los Angeles in 2016, and she's already worked with Marc Agnifilo for 8 years on criminal issues such as tax evasion, narcotics, SA, securities fraud, and public corruption while they were previously associated with Brafman's law firm. Only in her early 30s, Teny Geragos is the youngest lawyer working on the Diddy case, and she's been using her youthful perspective to her advantage by using unconventional techniques like hopping on a TikTok to address issues revolving around her client Diddy Combs. We want to be able to respond to allegations where people are forming opinions. I see where all of the misinformation spreads. I see it happening on people's phones and in short 1-minute clips. I don't see the difference here in doing TikTok videos versus going on TV. When it comes to the role that Teny Geragos will most likely play in Diddy's case, among all other lawyers that have been assembled for his legal team, The Hollywood Reporter made their own observations. Teny will likely take on the delicate task of cross-examining female witnesses. Defense teams often presume juries may be sensitive to men questioning women in court about alleged sexual violence, which is why female attorneys are frequently called on for such inquiry. Teny Geragos has also not shied away from addressing the media when it comes to trying to shift public opinion about Diddy, even at a time when he's being viewed as the music industry's ultimate monster. I hope he gets out. He has done everything somebody under investigation can do. I can't think of anything else that he could have done. There were no surprises here, Chris. We knew that he was under investigation for racketeering and trafficking, and he stayed put. He committed not to fly out of the country. He stayed within the country, and they didn't ask that of him. That was a commitment he made, but those activities and the lifestyle is not criminal. What was notable today, what my partner Mark said in court, is that they never once said that these women didn't consent to what happened. Not once. Many young actors, rappers, and athletes have been accused of being nepo babies, for being able to use nepotism to follow in the footsteps of their famous family members that are already in the field and get the financial privileges that come with it as well. Teny Geragos might be considered among the first modern nepo babies for celebrity lawyers, because she happens to be the daughter of an Armenian-American lawyer, Marc Geragos, the well-known criminal defense attorney to stars like Chris Brown, who picked Geragos to defend him after he was accused of assaulting his then-girlfriend Rihanna. Marc Geragos has also been chosen to defend Michael Jackson, Robert Downey Jr., Nate Dogg, former President Bill Clinton's brother, Roger Clinton, Winona Ryder, Kesha, and even his daughter Teny Geragos' current client, Diddy, on several occasions. Another one of Diddy's lawyers that has also taken on another sketchy case is Alexandra Shapiro, co-founder of litigation boutique Shapiro Arado Bach that was established in 2009 with former Gibson Dunn partner and Columbia Law School classmate Cynthia Arado, who has handled legal work for Jay-Z's record label Roc Nation. Shapiro's husband, Jonathan Bach, joined the firm in 2019, who was previously a former head of Cooley LLP in their New York office. Alexandra Shapiro's profile on the website for her firm, Shapiro Arado Bach, states that she is noted for successful results in high-profile white-collar matters. She has won appellate reversals in many criminal and civil cases. These victories include 2 Supreme Court decisions narrowing the scope of the federal fraud statutes, Simonelli versus United States and Percoco versus United States, as well as multiple Second Circuit rulings granting judgments of acquittal and new trials. Alexandra argued Salmon versus United States, the first insider trading case heard by the Supreme Court in 20 years. But Alexandra Shapiro started off by attending Williams College, and she graduated from Columbia University Law School in 1991 with the highest academic average. Working her way up earlier in her career in 1993, Alexandra Shapiro was a clerk for late U.S. Supreme Court Justice and feminist icon Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This was between Shapiro getting her degree at Columbia Law School and spending 5 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. Alexandra Shapiro was also later found time to work as a partner at Latham & Watkins, the world's second-largest law operation by revenue, based on the 2023 American Lawyer Rankings, for the majority of the 2000s, and later wrote a novel in 2022 called Presumed Guilty that follows the subject of a wrongful white-collar criminal prosecution that involves the employee of a hedge fund. 2 of the cases that this Diddy attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, worked with both happened to be involved in scams in the world of cryptocurrency. Nathaniel Chastain, a former employee of the OpenSea NFT marketplace, and Sam Bankman-Fried, who started the FTX cryptocurrency exchange. Alexandra Shapiro wasn't able to keep Nathaniel Chastain out of prison during his case for using confidential information to make thousands of dollars while he was head of product at OpenSea, the digital NFT marketplace. Nathaniel was sentenced by the U.S. District Judge Jesse M. Furman in New York after a jury found him guilty of wire fraud and money laundering. The court ordered him to forfeit 15.98 Ethereum cryptocurrency tokens, worth about $26,000, and pay a $50,000 fine. Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency by market value after Bitcoin, and the majority of NFTs are traded on the Ethereum blockchain. Nathaniel also spent 3 months behind bars after his conviction, which was the first ever insider trading case involving digital assets. Nathaniel could have been looking at as long as 20 years in prison on each count against him, although federal sentencing guidelines called for 21 months to 27 months. Prosecutors had asked the judge to push a sentence within that range to send a message to potential fraudsters. It turns out that as part of Chastain's job duties, he was responsible for picking which digital NFT tokens would be featured on OpenSea's homepage, which typically increased the prices. The prosecution stated that Nathaniel purchased dozens of NFTs before they were even highlighted and sold them right away for as much as 5 times what he paid for them, making more than $57,000. At his court hearing, Nathaniel was remorseful and stated, "I am here today because 2 years ago I let down the community I was serving and lost sight of the person I aspired to be. I'm sorry for putting my colleagues and friends at OpenSea through this ordeal." Most traditional insider trading cases deal with securities fraud charges for buying and selling shares based on knowledge of non-public information. But in Chastain's situation, he was charged with wire fraud, accused of misappropriating confidential business details for his own personal gain. The veteran appeals lawyer Alexandra Shapiro was also hired to defend Cryptocurrency mogul Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of the FTX cryptocurrency exchange, who is serving a 25-year prison sentence. Sam Bankman-Fried was convicted of orchestrating a massive fraud, stealing billions of dollars from FTX customers to fund his personal interests, including political contributions and investments. Sam Bankman-Fried was found guilty of 7 counts of fraud, including securities fraud, wire fraud, commodities fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and money laundering. The prosecutors claimed that Bankman-Fried used billions of dollars of FTX customer funds for his personal use, for extravagant spending, political donations, and investments in his other company, Alameda Research. On top of all that, he was also accused of making false statements to investors and creditors. Sam Bankman-Fried was also convicted of conspiracy to commit these crimes because he worked with others to carry out these schemes. And the fraud led to the collapse of FTX, which was a major exchange at the time and led to huge financial losses for its customers and investors. Ironically enough, SBF had been in the same detention center in Brooklyn as his lawyer Alexandra Shapiro's other client, Diddy. And during an interview with Tucker Carlson, Sam Bankman-Fried was asked if he has made friends in jail and if he had been hanging out with Diddy, to which Sam Bankman-Fried laughed and said, "He's been kind. Obviously, I've only seen one piece of him, which is Diddy in prison. And he's been kind to people in the unit. He's been kind to me." It's a position no one wants to be in. It's kind of a soul-crushing place for the world in general. Alexandra Shapiro took Sam Bankman-Fried's case after she won U.S. Supreme Court victories the previous year for clients Stephen Aiello and Joseph Girardi, who were convicted of their own fraud charges in connection to an upstate New York development known as Buffalo Billion. In a surprising turn of events, in March of 2025, Diddy added another high-profile name to his legal defense team, criminal defense attorney Brian Steele, known most recently for representing rapper Young Thug in the ongoing Ricco trial involving the YSL collective in Georgia. Steele brings extensive experience in handling complex, high-profile criminal cases involving racketeering, organized crime, and violent offenses. He's the one that negotiated the plea deal for Young Thug, as well as even willing to go to jail for contempt of the court to defend him. Based in Atlanta, Georgia, Brian Steele had been practicing law for over 30 years and is regarded as one of the top defense attorneys in the southeastern United States. His legal career includes defending clients in both state and federal court on charges ranging from murder to large-scale drug trafficking and racketeering. And he built a reputation for being thorough, assertive, and strategic in the courtroom. And the most attention that he had ever gained, despite having already been a legend in the game, was during the YSL Ricco trial for his vocal courtroom presence and his willingness to challenge procedural decisions, including public disputes with the judge overseeing that case. His approach typically focuses on exposing weaknesses in the prosecutor's arguments, preserving constitutional rights for his defendants, in this case asking for a mistrial for Young Thug. And in Diddy's case, Brian Steele is expected to provide additional expertise in RICO law and trial defense strategy, despite all of the other competent lawyers already on his team. And his addition signals a reinforcement of the legal team's preparation for the complex trial that has already begun. And this roster is all of the names that I had mentioned earlier. But Brian Steele was the one that started off, and he's the one speaking in the first 2 days of the trial as well. So it's clear that he's taking point on this entire operation. Solo practitioner Jonathan Davis, whose firm is called Jonathan D. Davis PC Attorneys at Law, was hired as one of Sean Diddy Combs' civil attorneys for his legal team. Similar to Diddy's lawyer Benjamin Brafman that he calls Uncle Benny, Jonathan Davis has also been a legal advisor to Diddy for decades. Jonathan was educated at both Franklin and Marshall College and Villanova School of Law, and before establishing Jonathan D. Davis PC in 1993, Jonathan Davis gained extensive experience practicing law at a full-service New York law firm and at Gold, Farrell & Marks, which is recognized for its expertise in entertainment litigation. As a trial and appellate lawyer, Jonathan Davis has litigated entertainment and commercial cases over the past 35 years, with plenty of hard-earned experiences in the state and federal courts of New York and throughout the country for clients in the areas, including but not limited to major and independent record labels, music publishers, high-profile executives, commercial disputes, copyright infringement, trademark infringement, privacy and right of publicity issues, A-list celebrities, fraud and misinterpretation, and several others. Two of the famous A-list celebrity cases that Jonathan Davis has worked on over the years have been for rapper Nicki Minaj and R&B singer Mary J. Blige. Davis represented Nicki Minaj and her company Pink Personality, LLC, against a lawsuit filed by Nicki Minaj's former stylist, Terrence Davidson, in a Georgia federal court. The claims mostly centered around Terrence Davidson accusing Nicki Minaj and her company Pink Personality of breaking verbal contracts that they would be launching a reality TV show and a wig line together, but in the end, all she allegedly did was use his designs for her own business. U.S. District Judge Harold Murphy in Atlanta agreed that Davidson did not have grounds to make this claim. In Terrence Davidson's $30 million lawsuit against Nicki, he claimed to have worked for Nicki as her hairstylist in early 2010 up until early 2013, and that while doing so, he created various wigs and hairpieces that she wore, including to a pre-show for MTV's Video Music Awards during media appearances in London and for her video Super Bass. He also said he turned down another contract for a reality TV show after having a talk with a representative of Nicki Minaj, further making him dependent on their verbal agreement becoming a reality. Terrence Davidson has also worked with celebrity singers Patti LaBelle and Jennifer Hudson, and stated that Nicki Minaj and her team began giving him the silent treatment months into talks about them having a reality show and the line of wigs together. Nicki's lawyers said that Terrence Davidson was mad because he no longer had Nicki Minaj as his biggest client and was seeking to force himself into a business relationship with her to get money from them that he didn't earn. The judge said that Terrence Davidson claimed his wigs were distinctive because of their design and color, but that there was no evidence to prove that he made any attempt to connect his wig designs to himself in the public mind, or that anyone was actually confusing the wigs sold by him with wigs sold by Nicki Minaj. Lawyer Jonathan Davis was able to successfully move to dismiss all of the claims against Nicki Minaj, and the federal court judge ruled in favor of Nicki and dismissed the entire suit because the judge came to the conclusion that since Terrence Davidson never had any written contracts with Nicki, he had no case. But Terrence Davidson did file an appeal and won that based on the decision that he and Nicki Minaj had an oral agreement that Terrence would design and sell wigs for her personal use only, and that if he had known that she was going to turn around and sell the designs, he would have charged her a higher price. The terms of the out-of-court settlement were to be kept confidential. Another particular case that Diddy's lawyer Jonathan Davis saw success with was when he was defending the famous R&B singer Mary J. Blige when she was facing Vision Entertainment Worldwide, a promotional company that filed legal documents accusing her of allegedly pocketing over $100,000 in show money that they had paid her and she never performed. Mary J. Blige was booked to sing in Dallas but suddenly pulled out days before she was scheduled to hit the stage. Vision Entertainment Worldwide claims they paid her $145,000 to contract her for the event that she herself helped them promote, but she allegedly diverted her Dallas plans for a Brooklyn concert with the rock band The Rolling Stones. To make the situation even worse, Vision Entertainment Worldwide claims Mary J. Blige never gave them the money back, which she denied. The company sought a minimum of $145,000 to settle the discrepancy, but they ended up losing the case. Represented by Jonathan Davis, a motion was filed to dismiss the promoter's complaint and to obtain summary judgment on the furnishing company's counterclaim for the remaining payment due under the concert agreement. The New York federal court granted the motion, awarded the remaining money due under the concert agreement, and she was allowed to submit an application for attorney's fees against the promoter. Along with Jonathan Davis, civil attorneys Michael Tremonte and Eric Wolff of the New York-based boutique firm Sher Tremont LLP are also a part of Diddy's civil litigation team. Before becoming a partner and co-founder of Sher Tremont, Michael Tremonte graduated with highest academic honors from Vassar College, attended the American School of Classical Studies in Athens, Greece, and is an alumnus of the graduate program in classical philology, the history of language, at Princeton. Then he graduated from NYU School of Law and began earning his legal experiences when he clerked for the Honorable Nicholas G. Garofis in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York, put in work as an associate at Kramer, Levin, Naftalis, and Frankel LLP, and became a partner at the Cohen and Gresser LLP firm, and serving as Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Criminal Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. Michael was even named on the prestigious Super Lawyers list of the top 100 lawyers in New York 3 years in a row from 2015 to 2017, and his legal practice includes complex commercial disputes, banking litigation, antitrust, employment law, accountants liability, securities, and others. And on the white-collar side, Tremonte's practice zeroes in on the defense of individuals and companies in federal and state criminal and regulatory investigations involving insurance and accounting fraud, allegations of securities, antitrust violations, improper trading practices, market manipulation, tax fraud, and money laundering. Tremonte has also proven that he knows how to handle civil and criminal Ricco cases, having successfully represented clients that have gone through public and private corruption investigations, with situations that involve bribery and kickbacks in federal procurement, as well as the mishandling of employment benefit programs and healthcare funding. Two of the big court cases that Michael Tremonte has participated in prior to being brought on board for Diddy's trafficking and racketeering trial are when he represented the Russian-American lobbyist Rinat Akhmetshin and the ex-New York Islanders NHL team co-owner Stephen Walsh. Diddy's lawyer, Tremonte, had a front-row seat to a court case that rocked the world of American politics when he represented Rinat Akhmetshin, a noteworthy figure in the special counsel investigation into possible Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election when Donald Trump was elected for his first term. Having served briefly as a counterintelligence officer for the Soviet Union and having previously come to the United States to study biochemistry, Rinat Akhmetshin became a person of interest in American media in July of 2017 as a registered lobbyist for an organization run by Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya, who, along with Rinat Akhmetshin, had a meeting with Donald Trump's election campaign officials at Trump Tower on June 9, 2016. The other significant attendees of that Trump campaign Russian meeting included Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, chair of the 2016 Trump campaign, and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law. It's been reported that around the time of the Trump Tower meeting, Rinat Akhmetshin had received $500,000 in big payments, including $100,000 from Denis Katsev and another $52,000 from a foundation financially supported by people wishing to alter the Magnitsky Act that placed sanctions on Russia. Denis Katsev, who also donated $500,000 to the Human Rights Accountability Global Initiative that was founded by both Natalia Veselnitskaya and Rinat Akhmetshin, stated that the organization's intention was to help unfreeze adoptions Russia cut off after the Magnitsky Act was passed, which made the process difficult. But this goal wasn't believed by some foreign policy analysts who insist that the aim of the Human Rights Accountability Global Initiative was to advance the interests of Russian businesses and individuals targeted by the sanctions that were put in place by the Magnitsky Act. Rinat Akhmetshin and the Human Rights Accountability Global Initiative came under scrutiny by special counsel Robert Mueller, who was investigating Russian influence on the 2016 Donald Trump presidential campaign. Soon, Rinat needed help from Diddy's lawyer Michael Tremonte when he filed a libel lawsuit in federal court against Bill Browder, an American investor and a prominent critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin, accusing Browder of repeatedly defaming him publicly by labeling Rinat as a Russian intelligence asset and a Russian GRU officer on Twitter and in interviews with news outlets. The GRU can be defined as Russia's main military intelligence agency focused on overseas activities. The majority of the disputed statements in Rinat's lawsuit were related to allegations by Bill Browder that when Akhmetshin met the Trump officials in 2016, that somehow he was working on behalf of Vladimir Putin. Bill Browder told Business Insider, "In my opinion, you had a member of Putin's secret police directly meeting with the son of the future next president of the United States, asking to change U.S. sanctions policy crucial to Putin." But according to Rinat's lawsuit, Bill Browder's claims were false, insisting that he never represented the Russian government or its officials at the Trump Tower meeting, and asserted that he has never been a Russian GRU officer, intelligence asset, or a spy for the Russian Federation or the Soviet Union. Rinat sued Bill Browder for defamation, alleging that Browder falsely accused him of being a Russian intelligence officer and was seeking a minimum of $1 million in damages, saying the defamatory accusations hurt Rinat's lobbying business in D.C. Why was Bill Browder such a crusader for sanctions against Russia in the first place? It all stemmed from the 2009 death of his lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, in a Russian prison, and who had been investigating an alleged tax fraud corruption scheme. It was actually Bill Browder's campaign to expose Russian human rights abuses that led to the Magnitsky Act, named after Browder's deceased lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, getting passed in the United States in 2012. Not only did the Magnitsky Act force sanctions on alleged rights violators, but Bill Browder pushed for similar Russia sanctions legislation in other countries. Michael Tremonte, his law firm, and attorney Kim Sperduto of the firm Sperduto, Thompson & Gassler managed Rinat's defamation case. The specific details as to what Tremonte's role in the special counsel investigations isn't publicly available, but it has been confirmed that he successfully resolved the case with no charges filed against Rinat, who at that time was a key target in the investigation. Michael Tremonte also served as a lawyer for a former co-owner of the New York Islanders hockey team and former chief executive officer of WG Trading Co., who ended up getting sentenced to 20 years in prison for participating in a $554 million fraud that prosecutors said enabled him to misappropriate over $50 million for his personal use. Michael Tremonte abruptly ended a sentencing hearing for Stephen Walsh, who was 70 years old at the time, by asking that his client Stephen Walsh be given more time to consider asking to withdraw his guilty plea. Tremonte told the U.S. District Judge Miriam Goldman Sitterbaum in Manhattan that there was not another financial crime even close to Stephen Walsh's that resulted in such a long prison term. The judge gave Walsh until the following Tuesday to decide whether to try to withdraw his guilty plea. But ultimately, Stephen Walsh of Sands Point, New York, pleaded guilty to participating in the fraud that spanned from 1996 through February of 2009 that cheated institutional investors, charitable and university foundations, as well as pension and retirement plans out of many, many millions of dollars. During those years, Stephen Walsh operated a securities business with partner Paul Greenwood of North Salem, Connecticut. The businesses included Greenwich, Connecticut-based WG Trading Co. and Westridge Capital Management in Santa Barbara, California. Stephen Walsh's partner Paul Greenwood pled guilty in 2010. As a part of Stephen Walsh's plea, Walsh would not appeal any sentence up to 20 years in prison. The prosecutors on the case asked for a lengthy sentence to deter others from ever following his footsteps, saying Walsh diverted more than $50 million from investors to live like a king off the backs of others as he helped finance businesses started by his children and paid millions of dollars to his ex-wife. Walsh choked up in court and said that he was deeply sorry for the fraud. Tremonte said his client had worked in the areas of finance since the late 1960s and started soliciting investors with the best of intentions, including that 99% of the money originally invested had been recovered. But as Tremonte was doing his job by sticking up for his client to minimize Walsh's role in the fraud, saying he did less than his co-defendant, the judge interrupted him by saying he certainly had no trouble spending the profits. Stephen Walsh and Paul Greenwood were accused of issuing bogus securities to cover the losses and used investor money to not just enable Walsh's children to run their businesses and for Walsh to cover payments to his ex-wife, but the fraudulent funds also assisted Paul Greenwood to buy a horse farm and a stuffed teddy bear collection. Greenwood pleaded guilty in July 2010 to 6 criminal counts, and in a court filing, his lawyers sought a prison term of no more than 5 years, citing Greenwood's efforts to demonstrate his genuine remorse and to make amends to the victims that were affected. They also submitted 84 letters from family members, friends, and others supporting leniency for Paul Greenwood. In terms of how it all played out for Tremonte's client Stephen Walsh, ultimately on May 8, 2019, Judge Loretta Preska shortened Stephen Walsh's sentence by 15 years, which qualified him for an immediate release due to the judge's determination that Walsh received ineffective legal assistance. Erica Wolff is an accomplished trial and appeals lawyer who joined Tremonte's Tremonte LLP law firm and has also been hired to serve on Sean Diddy Combs' racketeering and trafficking case right along with Tremonte. Before getting on board, she received her education first at Columbia College for her bachelor's degree, finishing with cum laude distinction. Then she received her law degree from the high-level law school Georgetown University Law Center. Erica Wolff's work experience includes working as a paralegal for the New York County District Attorney's Office, assisting with trial preparation and grand jury investigations for the Labor Racketeering Unit, and she was also an associate at Cal Gordon and Randall LLP, representing huge financial institutions, technology businesses, hospitality companies, and pharmaceutical organizations. Erica Wolff's client roster has covered a multitude of industries such as media, finance, public relations, tech, real estate, hospitality, and healthcare. In terms of actual cases that Erica Wolff worked on during her tenure with Tremonte LLP, a variety of them appear on their website that don't share the actual name of the client, including obtaining a $13.7 million judgment on behalf of a health insurance organization defrauded by a healthcare provider, favorably resolving a civil rights case for a victim of excessive force by a police officer, defending a real estate developer against claims for a 7-figure commission, and clearing a board chairman from liability against investor losses. In February of 2025, while awaiting the scheduled start of Diddy's May 5th trial, Erica Wolff was busy assisting him with a lawsuit of his own that he issued to NBC Universal over a documentary that Diddy says falsely accusing him of being a serial murderer who had relations with underage girls. This lawsuit filed in New York State Court claims that the documentary titled Diddy Making of a Bad Boy, including statements that NBC Universal either knew were false or were willing to publish with reckless disregard for the truth in order to defame Sean Diddy Combs. The Making of a Bad Boy documentary premiered on Peacock TV, the network's streaming service, on January 14, 2025. Diddy's attorney, Erica Wolff, had this to say about NBC Universal and the other entities named in the suit. As described in today's lawsuit, NBC Universal Media, Peacock TV, and Ample made a conscious decision to line their own pockets at the expense of truth, decency, and basic standards of professional journalism, grossly exploiting the trust of their audience and racing to outdo their competition for the most salacious Diddy expose defendants maliciously and recklessly broadcast outrageous lies in Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, in the purported documentary. Defendants accuse Mr. Combs of horrible crimes, including serial murder and essay of minors, knowing that there is no evidence to support them. In making and broadcasting these falsehoods, among others, defendants seek only to capitalize on the public's appetite for scandal without any regard for the truth and at the expense of Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial. Mr. Combs brings this lawsuit to hold defendants accountable for the extraordinary damage their reckless statements have caused. Oddly, while seeking a multi-million-dollar payday, for some reason Diddy and his team did not ask for an injunction to stop Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy from continuing to be available on Peacock or other NBC properties, especially with Diddy being accused in the documentary of being involved in the deaths of Kim Porter, Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie, and Dwight Myers. Dwight Myers being known as Heavy D from Diddy's hometown of Mount Vernon, New York, who signed to Uptown Records and died from a pulmonary embolism in 2011 at the age of 44. The legal complaint states that the documentary Diddy, Making of a Bad Boy shamelessly advances conspiracy theories that lack any foundation in reality, repeatedly insinuating that Mr. Combs is a serial killer because it cannot be a coincidence that multiple people in Mr. Combs' orbit have died. Also, the complaint questions why the Diddy, Making of a Bad Boy documentary details with Diddy having engagements with underage girls whose previous versions of the story have allegedly been discredited, being that they have confirmed that they were actually adults at the time. Diddy has been in the captivity of a Brooklyn federal jail since his September 2024 arrest on racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Federal prosecutors say that he used his massive influence and vast wealth to coerce female victims and male S-workers into drug-fueled freak-offs that could go on for days at a time. With that being said, it's no secret that the public opinion of Sean Diddy Combs is completely plummeted to the point that even his close friends in the entertainment industry have been steering clear of him. This was going on even before Diddy assembled his legal team to fight his cases. His name has seemingly been reduced to the slang phrase "no Diddy," used whenever someone wants to insist that they aren't doing anything suspicious in that manner. And to make matters worse, there have been entire documentary projects based on the apparent dark side of Diddy. Throughout 2024, even before the case started, TMZ released a docuseries that focuses on the allegations against Diddy, titled The Downfall of Diddy. In September of 2024, Netflix announced they were developing their own television documentary miniseries titled Diddy Do It, executive produced by 50 Cent, who has been trolling Diddy for many years about his strange behavior before it started becoming popular to do so. 50 Cent also stated that proceeds from the Diddy Do It project would be going to victims of SA and Grape. Then, on January 3, 2025, 4 months before Diddy's court trial was scheduled to begin, NBC's Peacock platform released a trailer to the documentary also centering on the allegations, The Making of a Bad Boy, like we previously mentioned Erica Wolff working against, and that was released on January 14th and included Al B. Sure speaking out about ex-wife and Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Kim Porter, who had children with both men and mysteriously died in 2018. Then on January 28, 2025, Investigation Discovery released a 5-part documentary series of their own titled The Fall of Diddy. Another media platform that has been vocal about the legal struggles of Diddy is the one co-created by former Bad Boy Records artist Mase, who made it known on March 7, 2025 episode of his podcast It Is What It Is with fellow Harlem rapper and co-creator Cam'ron that he has a creative way of getting revenge against his ex-boss Diddy Combs. Mase announced that he plans to release his first album in over 20 years on the first day of Diddy's racketeering and trafficking trial. Mase's last album was 2004's Welcome Back, which peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart and was certified gold. 5 years later, Mase also tried to poke his head back out of the shadows and reappear with more music in 2009, but Mase made it clear that his efforts were being blocked by his former boss Diddy, which pushed Mase to pop up unannounced at Diddy's live radio interview with Ryan Cameron. Mase can be seen storming into the interview, clutching documents that Mase claimed would clear him from staying chained to Bad Boy Records and would grant him the freedom to operate as a free agent in the music industry. Surprisingly, Diddy allegedly signed the paperwork, but it turns out that it only allowed Mase to perform as a featured artist on other rappers' songs. Later on, it was revealed that Bad Boy Records had kept all the publishing rights to Mase's music catalog. Then, about 11 years later in 2020, Mase took to Instagram to call out Diddy for refusing to sell him back his publishing rights, even saying that he tried to offer Diddy over $2 million to buy back his entire catalog, but nothing came of it. So in 2022, Mase put all his disgust into a song titled Oracle 2, The Liberation of Mason Betha, with Diddy disses like, "Yeah, I'm just a Harlem reppin' down a Vegas strip with my own shug. You from Mount Vernon, go and rep your own hood. You ain't no architect, you just a man who know how to market death." Apparently, that publishing issue that Mace had been complaining about should have since been squared away when Diddy announced in 2023 that he reassigned the publishing rights of his Bad Boy Records catalog to the artists and songwriters including Mace, the estate of Notorious B.I.G., The Lox, and Faith Evans. Unfortunately for them, Diddy already had a few decades of a head start in cashing out on their musical contributions, but this sudden change of heart was as if Diddy was aware that the backlash against him was on its way, and he was trying to build up some good karma in the public eye ahead of time before all those trafficking cases started going prime time. And also, they had to sign an NDA about any of their experience with Diddy if they wanted these publishing to be released to them. As far as that new Mace project dropping on the day that Diddy's lawyers will see his trial begin, it began May 5th and we haven't seen it. And Mace has stated that he intends to give his listeners a triple CD worth of music. Assuming that Mace considers one album to be at least 10 tracks, his triple album could be at least 30 songs long. Mace feels that by celebrating his return to the music business on the same day as Diddy's potential exit starts playing out in court would make them even, after years of Mace's various complaints about how Diddy did his career dirty. However, Mace may have gotten Diddy's trial date confused when he stated his new album would be dropping on May 25th, 2025, and it has been publicized that Diddy's court proceedings will actually be starting earlier. They started on May 5th, which means Mace will need to move up his release date earlier on the calendar. But on a previous occasion in 2024, Mace proved that he was very good at remembering important dates when it comes to Diddy. Speaking to his co-host Cameron on It Is What It Is, Mace made an interesting connection between March 25th, the date that Diddy's Miami and LA homes were raided by Homeland Security, and the 27th anniversary of Mace's Bad Boy label mate Life After Death, Notorious B.I.G.'s album release, which literally lived up to the title and occurred after Big's death. March 25th was also the date for the 21st anniversary of Cameron's crew The Diplomats' album Diplomatic Immunity release. Mace told Cameron, "Reparations is getting closer and closer. I'll be sure to give you your percentage. It's amazing that all of this would transpire on that day. That's eerie, man." Diddy's lawyers may be highly experienced and have represented plenty of other publicly despised people in the past, but even with their obvious success and cachet, none of them have had perfect track records when it comes to getting their clients off the hook, which means there are no guarantees that Diddy may be set free after his trial is completed, but we'll have to see.